down into the lower bracket, but I don't want to use that whole phrase of, well, they've done well regardless now, because that's rubbish when you get to the international. You want to win it, or you want to win as many as you can. As March said earlier on, he just wants to go as far as he can. What do they change up in the lower bracket? Because it's going to be tough down there for them.
I think the most important part they need to understand is when you're ahead, things that you need to do. Like, for example, during the first game, they need to realize they need to have a gem to consolidate the lead, to control the map, and they needed the right itemizations and stuff like that. I think overall, in Game 2, their draft may be a bit lackluster, but like what Sin said during the cast, he liked the idea, but it was a lot tougher to execute compared to what they had in the first game. First game was easier to execute, but they sort of let themselves down by not like doing the couple of small things right. So, I mean, for them, I feel you just go back, you watch the replay, you understand what you go wrong, and you just make sure it doesn't happen again.
Inexperience, perhaps, playing its role in that?
Yeah, definitely. Inexperience definitely has some part of it, but then again, they have Fly on the team, so he's the one that's supposed to be bringing the experience to them. Yeah,
indeed. Seb, what are your final thoughts on that game for EG?
I mean, I kind of expected EG to dominate Complexity, and no offense to Complexity, but I think EG is the strongest team. So I don't think Complexity should feel too down about it. I mean, having a bad game, which was the second game of it, happens. And also, you know, you play with players like Sumail, and that's why sometimes he's a bit hit or miss. He can snowball really, really fast. So, you know, he triple kills once, then the second time he's even stronger. He's not worse, so he's going to be as good as he was before the Battle Fury or whatever. And then it just gets harder and harder, and you keep fighting because you're out of options. You know, it was a tough game for them. Game 1, they did great. So let's just, you know, when you play in a tournament like this, there's no reason to beat yourself up all the time. Just look at what you're doing good. Look at your mistakes, but don't be depressed. Just keep on moving.
Okay, well, that's exactly what we're going to do now, because we're going to move on to our second game of the day. It was a nice segue. I like that, Seb. Thanks very much for that one. It is Team Secret involved against eHome. We'll start with Secret as well. They have been the ultimate favourite for very many months, not just recently, but for months now, and they're on a great roll of victorious championships as well. So who can stop them, if anything else, I suppose is the proper question we need to ask. But as we head into their first game at the International, you heard Fear say he's slightly nervous in that first game. Are we going to get any nerves from the Superstars?
I don't think they were taking too much out of their comfort zone in the group stage. They did have more losses, I think, than anyone expected. But again, they're like the pioneers of a lot of the strategies that we've seen in the past 5 months. The techies that has been fairly prevalent. They started like the Chen, Shadow Fiend, plus Queen of Pain that we saw a lot at DAC. So I think the other team's going to be nervous, like, oh, crap, what is Secret going to do today?
what secret strategy are they going to come up with, I suppose? From the other side of things, Winter, they've got an all-star lineup. Sometimes when you put those lineups together, they don't always work, do they?
Yeah, I mean, they function very well as a team, I think. And on everyone's mind right now, it's not who is going to beat Secret, it's how are you going to beat Secret. That's the biggest question. Right. How are you going to dismantle this unit of people?
All right. From a statistical point of view, Alan, how do they do that?
When you say, I want to go back to what Winter just said.
Okay.
When you say all-star team, okay, there are 107 players that have played 100 or more Dota 2 matches. The top 4 winning percentages in that group of players are all on Team Secret.
You probably saw the glasses.
Oh my goodness.
They aren't just cool, they're cooler than cool.
Just puppy things.
Right now, just hashtag just puppy things, yeah. The players will introduce themselves to each other. They do know each other, of course. And they'll head towards their booths. Looking forward to this one. We haven't seen Secret so far at the main event in our first 2 days. This is their first opportunity on the grand stage. And also eHomes as well. We'll talk about them in a little bit. But first, let's go through the lineups for Team Secret. They are the team of superstars, 2 previous international champions amongst them as well, heading towards the final, inevitably, they feel, and their fans do too, towards the first ever double championship. They will get themselves set up in their booths, and we will talk a little bit more about them, and also talk about eHome. Very interesting story for these guys, Alan, because we've mentioned it before, being those TI1 finalists, and it's a storied franchise in China as well, but they haven't had it all their own way in the recent years, and only really this year have come back to prominence in any way, shape or form. Secret?
Or eHome?
eHome.
eHome. We're going on to eHome. No, eHome really is an interesting team to me, largely because of a relatively recent acquisition of CTY. I mean, he's really the player that has put this franchise to me back on the map and back into the conversation as really potentially a great team. I mean, he has, of all players in the current patch, he has the second highest overall KAD, and they've played against excellent competition. You know, one of the times that we saw Secret drop a game in the group stage, it's because they gave away Leshrak to Maybe from LGD, and he just dominated that mid game. That mid lane. I've never seen S4 lose a lane that hard. CTY is the kind of player that can do just that.
Okay, well, let's take a quick look at their lineup, and we'll get the thoughts of the rest of our panel. Well, if you measure popularity by the cheers from the hall, I think ROTK got plenty of those that time round. It is a very, very intelligent team indeed, but they're going to have to pull all the stops out to try and take down Team Secret. They did have, however, Malini, a fantastic group stage.
Yeah, they performed exceedingly well. I didn't think anyone thought that they would actually be in contention for first place. I think I watched them versus Empire, and they actually looked really weak, but every single other match, I was like, wow, eHome, really, really good. Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with ROTK. We've talked about the strong captains, and I think behind PPD, Puppy, and S4 probably, and Xiao8, I guess he probably comes up next. He did lead Vici to a second place last year. He is very, very strong. The only problem is sometimes he feeds him awfully. That's about it. That's his only weakness.
All right, Winter. Where do you put them at the moment, eHome? Because we always talked about them being maybe fourth or fifth best Chinese team, and that's still great because the teams above them are fantastic. But that's not TI winning kind of form. Have they moved in anywhere, do you think, this year?
I think they've made huge improvements just based on what Alan said. The biggest thing that happened to them is having CTY, taking over the mid role for them. That was, for me, the biggest thing that happened in the last 2 months with them. They previously had issues with their mid laner not being able to take advantages and carry them, but CTY showed he's one of the best mechanical players, and drafting wise and team play wise they've been improving as the tournament is going on, and Lam obviously a very experienced support in their position as well.
Okay.
And just to briefly back that up, this was part of the conversation that some of us were having at ESL around the time when it looked like really the Western teams were going to have the advantage. A lot of people were mentioning that some of the Chinese teams really weren't bringing along young players. And when you talk about a team like eHome that's combined CTY with a couple of incredibly strong veterans in LANM and ROTK, this is a recipe for success at a tournament like this.
At least on paper, anyway. What's the best matchup you're looking forward to in player-wise or lane-wise? What are you looking forward to?
The mid lane is going to be very interesting for sure, but I think it's going to take more than that for eHome to beat Secret, in my opinion. They're going to have to adapt to a whole new play style they haven't faced so far. Right. That's the way I see it, and it's not going to be easy for them. I think when you play versus Secret, you need to be able to adapt in-game, and that's not common. Usually you can just play your game and it will be fine. Versus Secret, it might work, and if it doesn't, you need to be able to get it to work, and it's really not an easy task.
In the sense of where they are ranking-wise right now and recent results, this Team Secret are a heavy favourite for this game. Does that mean they'll probably draft fairly conservatively?
Yeah, I don't think eHome has to try anything too crazy. They can they're a very good team. They're super solid. I wouldn't be super surprised. I wouldn't be very surprised if eHome beats Secret or take a map or even win the best of 3. It's going to be tough, but it's definitely doable.
Why are you smiling?
I just love that question because when you ask it about what it's going to do, what this team is going to do, this is a team that pulled out Blood Secret.
All right, let me ask you a different question. Do they have a conservative draft mode?
They do, and I've seen them run a couple conservative drafts, but look, the fact is this. part of the definition of the great team, you don't have to know that much to know you're watching a great team. If you're new to Dota, buckle up.
Team Secret versus eHome.
Buckle up indeed and enjoy the ride, because it's draft time in game.
Respect ban versus eHome. It's a strong hero, but it is a hero eHome has been running a lot, and they've been very successful with it.
They run it against like any lineup. It's just their mech carrier, their frontliner, their tank. They sometimes run an off lane or safe lane, but yeah, Secret and EG I think are the only ones that really do this like strange second ban that no other team would do.
Do you think they are forcing the ban on the gyro as well? Because like the Chinese teams, they like to pick Razor against the gyro. That'd probably be the reason that maybe Secret wants to open with a gyro and avoid getting counterpicked by the Razor.
I don't really think they're terribly worried about the gyrocopter. Gyrocopter, again, his win rate has decreased as the tournament has progressed, and he has seen his weaknesses. Obviously, we've seen some like dominating performance by like Aggressive and other teams, but I don't think it's priority number one. I think, as usual, they want their hands on Naga. That is like number one priority, I think, for Secret.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we've seen in this team is that a lot of better teams especially have won games consistently by controlling tempo. And once again, Naga is just such a great tempo control.
It's going to be a Radiant Shadow Fiend for Secret here.
Yeah, and when you talk about Shadow Fiend, Arteezy's, look, Mushi's Shadow Fiend is iconic, but Arteezy's stats on Shadow Fiend are just far and away better than anybody else's. He has the most wins on the hero, highest GPM on the hero. He's just an unbelievable farming SF.
Efficiency. It's what he does best, and Radiant Shadow Fiend is all about efficiency. So eHome, let's see what they want to bring to the table. There's no Queen of Pain to actually dominate the Shadow Fiend in lane. There's still TA. Like, I